We'll get to the build in just a second, but first I want to give you some context of my thoughts of making this build. Hey, what's up? It's Kramer. If you're new here, thanks so much for watching today. As you guys know, I don't have the most subscribers, but I definitely am fully convinced that I have the best ones. So if you're new, I really appreciate it, and thanks for joining us today. With the crossbow, there are two major parts. The first is the working limb, the bow limb, the bow, the part that actually works and stores all the energy. This is also called the lath or the prod. A lot of people will call it the stave even on a crossbow. I just call it the bow limbs, the working limb. It's the actual bow. The second part of a crossbow is the stock, the butt, the trigger, the rest of all of this that's not on a normal bow. So with that being said, I've seen a lot of people take just some bow limbs they buy and build their own crossbow from it. Today, I took a bow I actually built a few months ago and I made a crossbow from it. But this bow I made a while ago, I really like it. It's an Osage orange bamboo backed reflexed bow and it's fantastic. So I didn't ruin it in this video. I didn't ruin it today. I put some straps on, as you can see here, so that it doesn't damage it. So my main goal for building this crossbow is to figure out how the trigger system works and just the basics of a crossbow. This is so new to me and I've never done this before. Whenever I'm building anything for the first time, I like to go quick and fast. This allows me to adjust for my mistakes. I know I'm gonna make mistakes when I do something for the first time. So for example, with this crossbow, I decided to use limbs I already had instead of making brand new ones. I decided to use screws instead of glue. That way I can assemble and disassemble the crossbow real fast to correct for mistakes I may run into. This is basically like a prototype, and then I can make a true piece of art later on once I get the concepts down in my mind. In today's build, I do some things okay, and I definitely do some things wrong. And this is the first crossbow I've ever made, and so I'm just learning as I go. The goal is to just understand all the mechanics, not to try to make this look pretty, but to understand the mechanics of a homemade crossbow. Also, after I show you how I built this, I'm gonna take some slow motion video of the trigger system to see how that's working and as many aspects of the bow as I can. I think that would be really cool. It's always fun to watch something in slow motion because it gives you more perspective of what's actually going on. And one more quick note, as far as crossbows go, this is a very low poundage crossbow. Because I'm taking a normal bow that I can just pick up and shoot and turning it into a crossbow, it's very light poundage. It's gonna be under 50 pounds when crossbows can go hundreds and hundreds of pounds high. So this is a very light crossbow, and I think that's probably a decent way to start so that it doesn't freak me out so much that my trigger system's gonna fail. Okay, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into this crossbow build. And after the build, we'll talk about what I learned, what I messed up, what I do differently, and we'll shoot this a little bit. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this crossbow build. I'm not convinced this wood's gonna hold, so I'm gonna test it. Yeah, I was right. We're gonna need another solution. Okay, first test. The trigger system is definitely the hardest part on a build like this, and it's very scary for me to do that. I do not like it, and it always feels weird to put your hand in front of a drawn bow like that. But I made the notches so big in the trigger system that I think the trigger's hard to pull. I know this method generally has a hard trigger pull, but I think I made that notch because I was so scared it was gonna fail extra large, and that's making this trigger my whole force. I feel like I have to pull to get it shot. I use two hands there. I probably need to be able to use one, and I can, but I pull it real hard. So I'm sure there's multiple different methods to making the trigger system easier to pull. And I think one of those is, if you can see right here, I have it about 1/2 inch thick on that trigger system. And if that was less, I'm sure it'd be easier to pull because I don't have to, I don't know the exact terminology, but I don't have to pull as much of that material away and down, so it's all just one big jerk, and I'm sure there's a smoother way to do it. Okay, so I'd like to take another shot here and see what it's like to pull it with just one, make sure that's solid, just one hand to see if I can pull it. Okay, we got it lined up. So if I were just to shoot this, it's a lot of force. I don't know how much force, but 20, 30 pounds, I feel like you gotta pull that trigger. I have not tried to shoot this bow beyond 2 feet yet, so let's give it a go. And this makes me a bit nervous. Okay. Arrow in. All right, here goes. It worked. It feels so weird pulling a trigger that hard, but I think I can get used to it. Talk about flinching when you shoot. I think I like closed both my eyes and just yanked the trigger. Let's give this another go. Okay, we've got it cocked. Now let's load the crossbow. Is that what it's called? Load it? I'm not sure. All right, here goes. Line it up. That's really interesting. And this might be beneficial for shooting. I find that right before it releases, I can feel it start to give. And I think I know what's going on. Okay, so check this out. Let me see if I can explain this. So there's tension pulling right here on the trigger. And as I pull the trigger, see how it pushes it out first and then it releases like that? And so when I'm pulling the trigger, I can feel it do that motion, and I know it's gonna release right there. There's two things here. One, again, I think I made this too long. Secondly, it actually gives me a moment to know when it's going to release. Set it again. Okay, pressure's here, the string's pulling. As I pull, it brings it backwards and then releases forward. I think the main reason that's happening is because I made that trigger so large so that I actually have to push the trigger the opposite direction a little bit before that corner can pass past the trigger and allow it to roll forward. I don't know, I just find that really interesting, but I'm learning, and that's what this was about today, so I'm excited. This part right here is real crude, but it serves the purposes that I wanted. I used a bike tube to secure this in, and that's it. Just screwed it to tie it off at the end. But it allows this to not move much, and I can unscrew this and pull the bow out and shoot it as a normal bow, which was my main goal, is to understand the crossbow, and that's why I used a normal bow. But I didn't want to ruin this bow because I really like it. One of the interesting possible downfalls here is that the bow is being held at the exact same point as the arrow rest, and that's not how this bow is designed. The bow is supposed to be held right there. So crossbows are tillered evenly on both sides, whereas a normal bow like this will have a positive tiller, meaning the top limb's gonna bend a little bit more. So the tiller is gonna be different for a crossbow compared to a normal bow, but this still works. It worked today. And if I make a dedicated crossbow, I'll adjust the pressure point that's right here, the center of the bow, to the arrow rest, because in this case, we can shoot the arrow over the very center of the bow. On the trigger system, I used what I had, and I'm not super pleased with it. You can see there's some play right there. I should have made that tighter, as well as I think I have too much on the bottom right here. I think there's too big of a groove. I think if I made that in half, it would still hold fine, but the trigger might be a little bit easier to release. I don't have experience with this, so I'm not for sure. That might have to be through testing, or some of you guys probably know that. I used all thread for these dowels, and I just sanded them down because it's what I had. But it's real crude, it's real rough. It worked, which made me happy, and I think I can look into how to make this and how to make this better in the future. But this has made me a lot more comfortable with crossbows and how the trigger works. in this specific style. So I think it was a successful experiment, although it's not pretty and it's not something I would want to use long term. I made this trigger system come down, but I think if I would have taken the angle like this, it would have been easier to pull the trigger, because then I would have just had to pull it up. But here, when I squeeze, it's harder to pull it that direction instead of up towards the handle. Because if I was just pulling it up, it would have been easier. But maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think changing the angle of this handle would have made it easier. And after looking at pictures online, a lot of crossbows with this trigger design do have that handle coming at this angle, and I'm wondering if that is because that makes it easier to pull the trigger. I made the bottom section of the crossbow this T where the bike tire goes on. I made it wide enough that I can put my feet on it in order to draw the bow. So it's kind of like a wooden stirrup sort of thing, but it allows you to draw the bow in the field by pulling it up and then shooting it, and you don't need a vise to draw it back. Easier to shoot than I thought it'd be. That's like 3 perfect shots. So even with the tuck trigger, it's a lot easier to aim than I thought it'd be. I did good at 10 yards, we're back to 15. We'll see if we can hit from back here. Can you see that? That's awesome. So we're back at about 20 yards. And we're gonna see if we can put it in there like we did at 10 and 15. Ooh, a little low. So this is 10, 15, 20 yards. Let's go shoot 3 at 20, see how we do. Back at 20 yards, see if we can put it in there. It's pretty good. Shot 2 from 20. Ooh, a little left. And shot 3 from 20. Haha. Let's check it out. That's pretty sweet. Okay, so there's the 3-shot group from 20. After only 6, 7, I've only taken 7 shots. I'm surprised how easy that is, how fast that is to shoot good with it. That makes me happy. I'm very pleased and impressed with how well this shoots. It takes out all the factors of string plucking, bad release, that sort of thing. Now there still is a trigger pull, but it takes out some human variable to where my fingers don't have to release the bow. I'm pretty actually surprised because I'm pulling that trigger hard to be able to get this bow to release. And when it finally released, I didn't really move it much off of where I was aiming, and you just line that arrow up right with the bullseye at whatever yardage your point on distance is, and man, it it performed really well. I'm very pleased with that. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you're not tired of me yet, you can check out the Shatterproof Archery YouTube channel where I have more videos over there, behind the scenes of Shatterproof Archery, instructional videos in archery, building some of our products, and that sort of thing. Thanks again. If you're new, really means a lot that you stayed this long. I'll see you on the next video. Have a great time. Until then, stay Shatterproof.